Hey guys, it's Allie and Paul from Integrate. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It is 1:02, so we are going to get started here, and I'm sure people will join us shortly. We're really excited to be doing our first ever webinar. We titled it Pivot, Don't Pause, because with our clients, with other businesses that we talk to and are working with, we see this fear in people and they just want to pause all their marketing efforts, and that's just not the right thing to be doing right now. So we're going to be sharing today some helpful tips of things that you can tangibly do today for your business to really pivot your marketing strategies in this post-COVID world. If you see below, you can ask a question, and we will be checking in frequently. So please add in questions that you want us to address, and we'll try to address it then. And if not, we'll make sure to get to it at the end. We are recording this, so if you do have to hop off, no problem. We'll be sending the link around, and you can also share it with your friends or colleagues. All right, here we go. So a little bit about Integrate. You guys, probably know who we are, but we're a full-service agency based in Houston and Austin, and we have what we've called the entire integrated marketing system, ecosystem, that we use to solve our clients' problems. Basically, these are the services that we offer. We got a couple of questions in the webinar before this, and we're going to be touching on each of these different services where we consider ourselves experts of specific things that businesses can be doing within this integrated ecosystem today. So first, to start off, branding and messaging is really one of those things that people are very nervous about right now. What to say, how to adjust your tone. People process information differently in a crisis, and the CDC just last year put out a report on the psychology of a crisis and how to communicate with people during a crisis. So the first thing you want to do is you want your information to be simple. People are half listening during a crisis, and they have their own internal monologue going on. So they're barely paying attention to what you're saying. So to keep your message as simple as possible is really important. You want to be clear with what you're saying as well for that same purpose, and consistent. People change channels really frequently when a crisis is happening. They ask their friends what they're hearing, if they're hearing the same things. And so as long as you're consistent with your messaging, then no matter where people are hearing from you, they're hearing the same thing. And you want to be timely with it. So what we hear first sticks. And so as long as you can get that message out quickly, then you have the opportunity to really control the message and the language. As I'm talking, I realize that I forgot to introduce Paul, our other speaker. So I'm going to take a moment here. I'm so sorry, and introduce Paul. Paul, do you want to say hi?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. Paul Coggin. I'm CMO, and along with Allie, one of the principal owners here at Integrate Agency. As CMO, I oversee what and how we market for our clients and their brands. I specifically manage our teams that create great work for paid digital media, such as pay-per-click and programmatic, website design and creative, search engine optimization, as well as social media. So glad everyone's here. Welcome, and I hope we're able to help, even if it's just a little bit, everyone during these crazy times. So back to you, Allie.
I'm so sorry about that.
You didn't introduce yourself either.
I'm Allie Danziger. I'm the president and founder here at Integrate. Obviously a little nervous for my first webinar, so I apologize about that. Also, we want to keep this to 45 minutes so that we have time to address people's questions. So I was just ready to dive right in. So sorry. Let me keep going here. So yeah, that's some information on branding. You also want to be empathetic without losing touch with your brand and key differentiators. We found this great YouTube video that is not going to play here today, but we'll circulate it around. But it was really hilarious to see back-to-back people, every brand that you can imagine having the same messaging. It's very empathetic and we're here for you type of message, which is important to have, But if you're not standing out from your competitors, then you're losing, and people are going to forget who you are and why they are doing business with you or should do business with you in the future. And really, you want to think about your audience when you're thinking about how you're going to be talking and who you're going to be talking about. So here's some stats as I'm talking, but first you want to analyze your audience. So who are they and who do you want them to be? Because each person is interpreting this situation that we're in this pandemic completely differently. So you need to make sure that your message speaks to them. And if depending on the type of business that you are and who your target audience, whether they're Gen Z or millennials versus baby boomers, they're interpreting this very, very differently, and you should speak to what matters most to them. And then you want to test your messages and change that based off of the feedback that you're getting. So if your messaging is working, great. If not, then do some A/B testing and segment your audience so that each person is getting maybe a little bit different message. There's really 3 stages of communication during this type of pandemic. So first, and we saw this, as I said in the previous slide, you start with the empathy, you talk about the risks with your business, the response efforts that your business is taking. I'm sure a lot of you did this and saw in your inbox so many people sending out how they and their business is responding to the pandemic. The second, and we're kind of in this mode right now, is really the maintenance mode. So what are the ongoing risks? Again, segmenting the audiences so that different people are seeing the messages that are important to them and how they can use your business today, and really address rumors. We were talking to a client just yesterday who rumors are out there that they're closing up shop just because they haven't been in as frequent of communication as some of their competitors. So it's really important to address those rumors head on right now. People are reading information from the businesses that they're used to doing business with or used to doing from, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But in this maintenance mode, just talk about what you're doing, how you're doing, and how you're changing your business, either if you're closed or if you're starting to reopen things. And then the third phase is that resolution type of messaging. So what are the lessons learned? Maybe if you're back open at 100% right now, which is probably not the case, but if you're fully back to normal, what are the lessons learned from this and how are you adapting your business moving forward? How have you changed things for good? What are new plans for the future? And essentially, like, how can people do business with you moving forward? So that's kind of the third step of the type of messaging that you'll want to do depending on where your business is through this. So branding is really kind of the first step in thinking about how should everything overarchingly be communicated. I'll hand it over to Paul now to talk tactically about our websites. We like to talk about getting clients to and through, or getting people to and through our clients' websites and businesses. So we'll start with the most important of what should be happening on your site itself. Yeah. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Allie. So we wanted to talk specifically about your website first, because we feel like if you're going to be pivoting more into digital or are pivoting into digital from more traditional means, your website needs to be in peak performance. So the first tip is to ensure that your web users' changing needs are being met and pivot your messaging to match. So Ali just touched on a lot of that stuff. Make sure that messaging is filtering down to your website. Make sure it's clear, it's transparent, and it shows that you understand their needs in this changing climate. Ensure that you're conveying a consistent, your messaging is consistent across all your channels. So social media, pay-per-click, make sure your website is in line with those. And it goes beyond just your typical, the COVID alert banner that you're seeing on the top of everybody's website these days. It's got to go beyond that. So we would like to see you pivot and create spotlight more relevant offerings to meet your customers' needs, whether that's a service or a product. Like, for example, one of the obvious examples, look at how restaurants have been forced to pivot now. They've had to institute slimmer menus, different hours, family packs, different methods of delivering their food or having curbside pickup. All of that has to be represented and clearly communicated on your website. Look at all the brands who have pivoted to begin making masks because of the shortages. or the alcohol distilleries who are pivoting to begin making hand sanitizer. So think about how you're going to communicate on your website, how you're pivoting, and make sure it's clear to your customers. Make sure you're consistently adding content as you adjust and as you pivot. Make sure you're communicating that to your website visitors. So next, we want to see you step up the trust factor on your website. So we saw a recent survey that stated 81% of buyers are now willing to purchase products from a new brand that they would not have considered before this pandemic. Your customers are becoming more open-minded. They're pivoting, so you have to as well. New buyers may not know you. They probably won't. So you have to instill trust. Make sure buyers feel safe by telling them what you do with their information. Reinforce that you'll never sell their information. If you are selling their information, stop doing that unless that is your business, right? Make sure you have a privacy policy. Tell them what you do in regards to cookies, terms of use, all of that. Add security seals and trust seals like McAfee and VeriSign. A lot of the web platforms, specifically if you're on e-commerce platforms or WordPress, they have plugins that are really easy, that allow you to do this very easily. Tap into social proof. So make sure that you're publishing user reviews, user-generated content, testimonials. There are certain buyer types that they will not buy for you or do business with you without some type of third-party social proof to get them to the next step in buying from you. It goes a long way. So also, don't forget your current customer base. And so people who have purchased from you in the past or those who continue to pay you, think about how you can launch new tools and programs that step up the engagement and the communication with those customers. It's always easier to sell more things to those who bought from you in the past than bringing in someone new. So examples of that might be you can add value to your customer base through a rewards program, or allowing someone to turn a specific purchase from you or a single purchase from you into a subscription. So think about these other tools and programs that you could launch that are relevant to you and your website that'll help people convert, and you can provide more value to them. So don't be afraid. The next one is don't be afraid to be altruistic and show it. So consumers are also taking note of brands who are being altruistic and donating efforts, whether it's money or time, to the pandemic. That the same study I just mentioned also states that the number is as high as 89% of online buyers are paying more attention to how a company or brand is handling their employees in terms of layoffs, or are giving back to their communities. Just right now during the pandemic, that's happening. Don't be afraid to show that you're helping. Find a clear way to communicate it. And last but not least, perform a CRO audit. And so CRO is conversion rate optimization. These are some simple things that you can do yourself that can help get your buyers through your buy flow a little faster. And so the CRO is just simply the process of easing the path for your customers to do business with you. So here's just a few quick things to think about. So on your homepage, are you clearly conveying your value proposition? So let me be clear. That is not you telling your customers what you do. But that is actually how what you do benefits your customer base. A lot of sites we're seeing these days are designed with a lot of visuals and with no verbiage. There's nothing on a lot of these sites. Take a look at your homepage or your high entry point pages, your high traffic to entry point pages. Are you clearly conveying the benefits for your customer to do business with you? So next, by the way, if you're not, that's one of the first things that you should do. And it's also one of the easiest. So next, you yourself follow your online buy flow, your conversion path from start to finish. What questions are you asking? What information is required? Are they necessary? Remove any unnecessary hurdles and friction points to getting them to say yes to doing business with you. One example that we see pretty regularly is if you're asking, how did you hear about us in your buy flow before the user finishes the order or the sign up? You're doing it wrong. That is information you can get after they have purchased from you or from your analytics package. So go through, audit that process, and remove anything along the way that you don't absolutely have to complete the purchase. So this next tip is mainly for e-commerce brands, but it could be relevant for others. But think about adding more payment options so you can be more flexible. Allow buyers to use PayPal, Amazon, Apple Pay, Google Pay. There's probably dozens of them at this point. Think about installing a pay later payment processor such as Affirm or Afterpay. Not only does that instill trust in you, but it also gives more flexibility for your buyers that they need right now. And then dig into your site analytics. This is a theme that you'll see in a couple other things later in this webinar, but your analytics are crucial. So what we'd recommend during this audit is to track down your worst performing pages. Those are going to be your pages that when you look at when you look in Google Analytics, they're going to have 0 conversion rate when you look at your path flows. They're going to have a high bounce rate. They're going to have very low time on page. Take a look at those pages and see how you can improve them. Are you being clear with your value proposition, et cetera? Write more content, all of that, which is also going to be good for SEO, which is actually a good segue for our next section where we dive into SEO. So while you're doing your conversion audit, we want you to also keep SEO in mind. So the following types we're looking through this from the perspective of the lens of the pandemic. However, you should always be doing these SEO tactics if you can, if you have the time. If you have a team to do that, that's great. But SEO is an ongoing process. And so one of the things we want you to start with is start from scratch and redo your keyword research. Look for new queries that you're seeing that show changing user behavior. Let that guide you on how you optimize your website for SEO and what new content you should be producing. Do this multiple times a month if you can. What that'll allow you to do is to stay on top of the changing trends. And so much is changing right now. It's important that you stay on top of it. So if you're pushing more traffic through more digital marketing, you're going to be getting more and better actionable data. So one of the things we're seeing is our surveys are starting to hit now that are showing that up to 60% of all websites are experiencing a decline in organic traffic during this pandemic. You guys need to be counteracting that by creating new content that's focused on what's relevant right now. So understand the importance of new and fresh content on your site and its impact on the new traffic coming to your site. Keyword research drives that strategy. It's absolutely essential. So beyond your CRO audit, do an SEO audit, as I mentioned, and focus on the changing landscape of the SEO algorithms. There was a big Google update that started on May 4th, just a few weeks ago, and wrapped up on the 18th. What we'd recommend you guys doing, look at your rankings, look at your web traffic data, see how that core update impacted you during these specific dates and how it's continuing, if it has. If you saw declines, look at where you dropped in rankings, look at those pages that actually dropped and begin to optimize those, not only for CRO, but also optimize those with new keywords, better content from an SEO perspective. One of the things that's going to do is actually future-proof your website against more algorithm updates. You should never put off good, solid SEO work, but if you haven't been able to keep up with your routine SEO, now's the time to kind of take a step back and get caught up. There's no better time than now. So next, we'd like to see you step up your content production. Again, dig into your analytics. Do you have a site search on your website? Are there COVID-related searches happening on your website? If there are, create content that delivers more relevant searches to not only your users, but also to search engines. So, and then go beyond COVID and the pandemic. What else are they searching for? Use that data to determine how to create relevant content for your users. If you have employees whose jobs have been impacted by the pandemic and they have extra time on their hands, pivot them to start creating content for you. Look, not everybody's a great writer, but almost anybody can put together a content outline for something that you want to publish. That can help set you up for success into the future going through the rest of the year. It doesn't have to strictly be right now dealing with the pandemic. And then as you went through your CRO audit and you found those pages that were underperforming, use that opportunity to improve the content on those pages from an SEO perspective too. You've done your keyword research, you know they're not working. Work those into that content you're writing that helps bring more traffic in. So these tips are just some quick fixes, but know that investing in SEO is investing in the future of your business. That's going to drive more and better traffic and more relevant traffic into your website into perpetuity. So I want to shift gears into how we should be pivoting into more digital marketing as well.
Paul, before you do, we have a question. Do I need a COVID-19 page? Someone asked.
Yeah, I would say yes. If nothing else, what that's going to do, that is an easy kind of portal where you can communicate with new customers and existing customers how you're handling the crisis. So if you're running a manufacturing facility, what have you put into practice regarding sanitation procedures? Now, obviously, that's key for restaurants. What's changed in your operations that you can communicate to your customer base that they need to know? So yes, I just don't think it stops there. It doesn't stop at just the COVID-19 page. I hope does that answer the question. Anything you want to add to that, Allie?
No, that sounds great. And just a reminder, if anyone has questions, feel free to either do it in the ask a question place below or the chat bar that you see to the right. Either place we're checking and monitoring, and would love to make sure that this is as relevant as possible for you guys. Keep going, Paul, onto the paid side of it.
All right, great. So from a digital marketing perspective, we're going to recommend that everyone begin to shift and do more digital marketing. So if you're a business that relies on, say, out-of-home advertising, such as billboards or traditional TV, print, radio events, you're clearly being impacted from those marketing tactics they're just not as effective right now as they were before. And your budget should be pivoting into digital channels. So why? The obvious reason is people are spending more time at home and more time online. There's all kinds of studies and surveys that are showing that. You know, we're not breaking new ground by communicating that to you guys. That may calm in the next few months, but some of this, I guess I'll say, toothpaste can't be put back in the tube. There are things that are not going to go back to the way that they were before. And so some of the things that we're seeing to illustrate this further is that conversion rates through digital campaigns are rising. We're seeing an average of 25% increase in conversion rate across our client campaigns from users coming from digital campaigns. And studies are starting to come out that are supporting that, not only what we're seeing. So digital is also becoming cheaper. You're seeing Google's ad revenue actually decline from pay-per-click because advertisers are bailing from the market, leaving an unprecedented opportunity for those with the means to stick with it or pivot into doing more digital campaigns. So implement campaigns that allow you to target very specific audiences. Pay-per-click allows you to do that, but so does there are remarketing platforms. There's paid social and more programmatic display that allow you to bring in new customers at a very high rate, and all of that is getting cheaper. So expand your current efforts. So platforms are pivoting as well. So if you're selling products, for an example, Google and platforms like Shopify are innovating to help you sell more product. They're helping you grow. They want you to become more efficient. Google is now making Google Shopping a free service. Shopify almost immediately launched curbside pickup features and is now in the process of launching distribution services that you can more easily scale up production. Other platforms are doing similar things. Next, it would be don't neglect Bing ads. If you're only running Google ads, layer on Bing. Bing obviously isn't as big as Google, that's clear. However, in specific industries, Bings can show up to a 4 times click-through rate on their ads compared to Google. We've seen that you can actually increase your digital marketing efforts, at least specifically on the pay-per-click side, by as much as 25% by layering on Bing on top of what you're doing with Google. Also, layer on remarketing in every way you can. So paid social through Facebook, other social networks, Google RLSA ads, other display networks, programmatic. One of our favorite tactics is actually when you get deep into digital campaigns and you find out what's working and what's not, take the lower 10 to 20% of your digital campaign spend and turn that and put that into remarketing, specifically Google RLSA campaigns. What that allows you to do is to remarket into the campaigns that are more, that perform at a higher level for you. For you product sellers or your digital download sellers, if you're not on Amazon, rethink that. No advertising dollar goes further right now than Amazon advertising. You already know that Amazon is the largest market in the world. Well, PPE searches are making Amazon even larger. Expanding to Amazon opens you up to potentially millions of new customers. And yes, they take a commission, but the opportunity is worth it. Guys, and don't forget local. So buyers and shoppers are trending more towards local than ever before. So COVID has created a local movement of sorts with neighbors looking to help their local establishments. A recent Nielsen study that just came out showed that 32% of people surveyed strongly agree that they would make greater effort to support local businesses. What does that mean? It means you need to be directly communicating with your customers and potential customers and expanding your efforts on things like Google My Business and doing local Google ads, bringing in customers that way. Keep your local information updated through all the local portals. So beyond Google My Business, there's Bing ads, Apple, they all create mechanisms for you to keep your local information up to date. That means your open and close time, your hours, changes in your offerings and your operations. Any of that can be communicated through these portals. We highly recommend you do that. And then also take advantage of the Yelp promotions while some of them are being offered for free for the next month or so. That allows you to directly tap into the people who actually follow you on Yelp. It acts in a sense as a newsletter. So that's happening for free right now, and any local business should be tapping into that. So I'll turn it back over to Allie, and she's going to take on and talk to you about social media and PR.
Yeah, thank you. So as Paul was just talking about, expanding where you're thinking about for your digital marketing efforts, the paid efforts that you're spending online to drive traffic to your website, it's also important to think about expanding your playbook on social media, where we've been focusing so much time on Facebook and Instagram, mostly for the past few years for our clients. We're now seeing both an increase in the amount of time spent on social media. So just over the last few months, 2 months, there's been a 7-minute increase of time spent on social media platforms to 1 hour and 20 minutes per day, which is a lot. And that's expected to last at least 1 year. In that time, we're seeing trends change over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and how people are using it. And so it's important to adapt what you're doing on social to follow those trends. So while TikTok is something that I'm sure most of you have only played around with or are familiar with because your kids are maybe on it, it has seen a 48% increase in unique visitors and since January, which is an insane increase. And I've seen some brands doing some really interesting things through TikTok, whether it's showing off their product or their service, giving tours, especially as they've had to change practices within their business. You can really tap into unique audiences through TikTok, or taking advantage of some of the different trends on TikTok and adding some personality to your business or brand. I saw some local restaurants doing a really great job of showing off their social distancing practicing and their curbside pickup opportunities through TikTok. Also, YouTube saw a 600% increase in mundane task searches. So as we're all doing more things at home or cooking more things, people are on YouTube to find these how-to projects. So that's great for both people who can create content for social media, for YouTube, but also going back to Paul's commentary on digital marketing, creating digital ads for YouTube that are very, very short and can go before or after. You can target people that are searching for tasks that are relevant to your business, depending on what it is. So LinkedIn has seen a huge amount of traffic, obviously because unfortunately there's been such a change in the job market. People are there uploading resumes and making sure that their profiles are most up to date. But businesses are taking advantage of it too with LinkedIn learnings. So adding videos, webinars like this to their LinkedIn pages, we've seen an increase of the amount of videos watched on LinkedIn 3 times. In the first week of April, people watched 1.7 million hours of learning content on LinkedIn as compared to 500,000 hours the first week in January. So if you have that content, or if you're willing to create that content, posting it on LinkedIn and then offering a dialogue there to continue to educate followers is a really great opportunity. And then I don't have a ton of information about it, but just yesterday, Facebook launched Facebook Shops. So we're going to see this roll out. We've seen it roll out to a couple of businesses recently, but it's going to be something to pay attention to over the next few weeks. Previous to this, if you were on Instagram, the only way that you could have that swipe up feature was if you had over 10,000 followers. Well, now with Facebook Shops, and it's going to be rolled out on Instagram as well, you'll be able to sell direct through Instagram and direct through Facebook. It's their way of really continuing to help small businesses, and it's absolutely something to watch and think about if it's something that makes sense for your business. So the time you post has always been very important in social media, and those trends are changing right now as our behavior overall is changing both online and offline. So I'll just walk you through this because I think it's really interesting and something to pay attention to. On Facebook, it was previously the best time to post on Wednesdays at 11 and 1, and has moved to be really consistent throughout the week, Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. There has also been a sharper decline in engagement on Facebook after 5 o'clock. So people used to probably get home and stay on Facebook, and now they're doing that a lot less. On Instagram, previously Wednesday at 11 and Friday from 10 to 11 was the best times for engagement, and it's moved to Monday, Tuesday, and Friday at 11 and Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. Sundays used to be the worst day to post, but now people are actually very active on Instagram from 9 to 5, with a sharp decline every day after 6. So that's just interesting as our online and social media behaviors are changing. Twitter and LinkedIn, similar, haven't changed nearly as dramatic. Twitter, I think the reason that the changes haven't been as dramatic is people have always used Twitter, over the past few years have used Twitter to gather their news, and people are still gathering their news in the same form and fashion in terms of the times that they're gathering their news. So we're not seeing such a huge change there. And then on LinkedIn, as I mentioned, overall LinkedIn is really seeing this great kind of resurgence, and it used to be from 8 to 10, and just basically the biggest trend is people are getting online earlier on LinkedIn, earlier in the day. Also, the different industries are seeing different amounts of engagement. None of this is like a huge surprise in terms of just what, if you can think about yourself, what you're interested in and the types of information that you're seeking out. But you can see it on a week-by-week basis. Interestingly, engagement is overall down. So people are craving this interaction, and people are spending more time on social media, but they're engaging less. in my opinion, I think the reason for that is there's just so much information out there. People aren't taking the time to interact with brands and businesses as much as they were, and they're more consuming that information. Going back to the first slide that we showed with branding, people are in this chaotic state, even still 2.5 months later, as we're getting back to normal. People still just have a lot going on. So if you can create quality content, people are consuming it, but they may just not be engaging with it, asking questions and responding in the same manner. Now, I'm just going to move on to the next slide so you can look at other industries while I'm talking. There also is a potential that as businesses have had to pull back on employee headcount, or they've just paused their marketing versus pivoting. So there's probably been less content that's been pushed out on social media, which is also causing the engagement rates to decrease. So we'll see how this continues to change as time goes on. And I just encourage you that as you know that engagement's going down, that just means even more so that the content that you're pushing out needs to be outstanding content. When it comes to outstanding content, video always performs really, really well. Short snippets of content. If you're sharing an article or thought leadership, recap it. Don't just share the article. And have really, really great visuals. It can be harder to get those great visuals right now because we're at home or because you can't go onto a photo shoot or gather it together, but doing things at home are going to perform better right now because that's what's more relatable versus the aspirational content that we've seen work so well in the past. If you see like the influencers right here in the second column is going down, and in my opinion, I think that's just because people aren't aspiring to these like fabulous lifestyles at the moment. They're being more real into what, and they're connecting better with what's actually happening in their own life. See, we have a couple of questions here. Let me just make sure I can come back to some of them. Okay. I'll come back to those questions, I promise. So moving on to public relations. So viewership across the board is up on media platforms, local media, national media. Local media wants to help in local businesses tell their story, and they are hungry for your stories. The thing to keep in mind is that you just need to be very mindful of the angle and the things that they are covering right now. So here's just some ideas of some angles that you can take, but you want to tie everything back to COVID right now. That's just what the media is talking about. That's the angles that they're looking at, and they will tell your story. You just have to position it in the right way. One way that we've also been able to be really successful for our clients is to monitor what the media is talking about and react quickly. So, not shying away from some of these negative stories that are happening in the news, but helping our clients find a way that they can be a part of that conversation. So obviously the oil and gas industry is suffering and changing so much right now, but we've been able to get our clients involved in those oil and gas stories by talking about the things that are working for their businesses or how they're responding with their employees or their work environments, and still getting them awareness that's relevant to their target audiences, as well as to help them ultimately get out of this pandemic. So just think about what you are an expert at, even if it feels mundane and normal business to you. There's a very good chance that the way that you're staying in business or the way that you're pivoting your business is interesting to others, and you can pitch that to the right media sources. Really important, though, is to be mindful of the reporter situations today. They have a very stressful job right now. There's less journalists than there ever have been before, with more businesses trying to get that attention. There's less advertisers, so that means that there's less opportunities for publications to, there's less pages for them to tell the stories of our businesses, and deadlines are cut in half, content needs are doubled. I mean, it's a very stressful time. And so more important than ever, you need to be pitching the media really unique story angles. Think about it. They've got a job to do. They have a boss to impress, an audience to keep viewing their outlet. And so by giving them a story angle that no one else has, something that will really appeal to their readership, is going to help you break through the clutter and also stay in great graces with those reporters during and after this situation. Also just being as helpful and patient with them as possible as we're all going through this stressful time. And then follow their lead with the interview. So this is a picture, this happened to me the other day and was kind of awkward because I wasn't prepared to be wearing a mask on live TV, be so far apart from the reporter. It's just changed. And so it's important to be respectful of what they're comfortable with and adapt the previous media trainings that you may have had to follow this. So in this specific example, we wore masks, we all stayed 6 feet apart. This reporter had a boom mic that kept us far apart too, which is just different than the way that we've done interviews with her in the past. And I would recommend offering to do virtual or phone interviews when you can. And if you are doing that, making sure that they have everything that they need, you're making it as organized as possible so that they feel safe and comfortable through this different way of doing this interview as well. So email marketing is incredibly valuable. It's one of those tactics that is something that you could do tomorrow and hopefully have a lot of success with it. I'm going to speed through these and can answer any questions that anyone has, but focusing on education, not promotion, is incredibly valuable right now. Open rates are up. Email subscribers are up 89% in the last month. So people are ready and willing to get your information, but they want to be educated, not sold to. And you can see from this that people are sending more and more emails. I think it's because as cold calling is going down because we don't know how to reach people right now because we don't have their cell phones and we know that they're not in the office, cold calling is going down, so the cold emailing is going up. So more and more emails are going out and those are not working. You need to think about your target audience and what information is going to be most valuable to them. Behavioral messaging has a 70% open rate right now, and that's specific messaging to welcome subscribers if they've abandoned their shopping cart or if they just left the site in general after they had given you your email address. So that is the type of maybe not educational, but promotional content that if you have the right business for this can work really well. And you just want to be careful about the message that you're sending. So this stock up, hurry type of message can create unnecessary panic in a time when people are looking for simple, positive messaging. And so just be mindful of the type of messaging that you're sending and the power that you have in the emails that you're sending to influence both purchase behavior as well as emotional response to your brand. And with that, would love to answer some of the questions that we have gotten. So let me start scrolling through. Paul, I don't know while I was talking if you had a chance to look at any of these.
Yeah, so I can take Damon and Jill's questions. So
great.
Specifically regarding nationwide international B2B service companies on TikTok. It's really hard to say, but what I would ask is that where your audience is? And so if your audience is there, that does absolutely make it more relevant to you. TikTok is growing, but it's really, and I'm making generalities here, it's really more, moms and kids. So I would ask, is the target market you're looking for, is it the CEO or is it the purchasing manager? Is that person actually on TikTok? It's also very visual. And so you'll be needing to push out, graphics and things like that. Is that going to, help you achieve your goal, in actually entering that social network? So I hope that answers that. And for Jill, yeah, there's security concerns with TikTok, probably more so than any other network, this side of Facebook. But that's kind of the thing with social networks. There's always security concerns. I know there was a vulnerability in January that allowed hackers to do some things. There's a concern about it being a spy app for China, all of that stuff. What I think the advice we would give is that just you need to be comfortable with what you put in it. So what you upload, you need to make sure that or understand that there is risk involved, but there's also risk involved in everywhere else you're marketing on from a social media perspective too. So, who else has questions?
Right. So Aaron asked the question, what's the best approach for a B2B service company in a market that is in serious distress, oil and gas, selling a service versus a product? And we did talk a lot about e-commerce and product sales. So Paul, I'll start and you can piggyback. So the number one thing is to make sure that your message is correct and that your website is thinking about the different persona that you're actually trying to sell to. So what are you trying to do on your site, and make sure that it is very easy to achieve that. Then once, and Paul can go into more specifics, and then once your website is set up for success, then making sure that you're adding content to it on a regular basis to keep it successful and to keep the search engines finding that site and the content relevant to the buyers that you're trying to sell to. And then email marketing strategy through, you're not like doing the product cart abandonment in the same way when you're selling a service, but staying in touch with people, letting them know that you're still around, especially in a distressed industry, and the things that you're doing to help your customers.
Yeah, and I would add on a lot of the tactics that we talked about, Ali touched on email and website, all of that, SEO are still relevant for a B2B, no matter what industry you're in. So I think specifically we've seen success from a B2B perspective, potentially on LinkedIn. They have an advertising platform, and it allows you to target very specific people in their job titles or their type of jobs that they're in. So LinkedIn may be something that you want to look at in terms of tapping into new audiences. Generally, it's going to be a higher cost per acquisition model than something like Google Ads, but it's probably something worth looking at. Which one's next?
I'll just answer Janice's question real quick. What time on Twitter is best to post? So I can go back to that slide really quick. Here we go. It previously was Wednesday and Friday at 9 a.m. And now, again, it hasn't changed as dramatically, but the best time now is 7 to 9 on Fridays. That is helpful. Oops. Hey, how can we pivot our email marketing strategies so that we can stand out during this time instead of it being interpreted as noise? Paul, you want to go?
Well, I would just say so make sure you're highlighting your differentiating factors and your benefits. And don't look, everyone's getting more emails. So yeah, there's a lot more noise. So you've got to cut through it. So look at specific ways that you can increase your open rates through catchy subject lines. And I'm not saying blinking lights and all of that, but get creative with your subject line. Get it so that you got to cut through it. And make sure you're showing your benefits and how you differentiate.
I did read, and yeah, I didn't go into depth, but that emojis and subject lines are working great right now, better than they ever have before. So it's not relevant, it's not right for every brand, but those do seem to be working.
Just make sure they're relevant.
Yeah, exactly. And then how have send open times changed since we're not in the office? It used to be Tuesday mornings at 11 o'clock were the best time to send emails. And a study that I read yesterday is that Mondays and Tuesdays are now both equally the best times to send emails and a little bit earlier in the day from 9 to 11. So I guess that just means people are getting their week started earlier. I know for us and a lot of our team members, it's not turning off as much, right? Like we're continuing to work from home, and so there's not so much separation from the workplace and home. So the day starts a little earlier, lasts a little later, outside of kid duties. I think that is our questions. We'll stick around for a couple more minutes in case anyone has any other questions, but thank you all so much for listening in on this. We will be sending out this recording as well as the summary of the recording, summary of the webinar, and really appreciate it. Stay tuned for our next Pivot Don't Pause webinar coming up soon. Amy,
hey, Amy's got
Amy has the question, have dates and times for press releases changed as well? I don't know for a fact, like I didn't see any stats or anything on that, but I don't think so. When sending press releases to the media, I would just be mindful that it's in the body of the email, not an attachment, and that you have some sort of summary or recap at the front of the email as well, because reporters are getting inundated with information right now, and you want to keep it relevant, of course, to COVID, what they talked about, et cetera. And just making it as easy for them to read, especially on their mobile device, will help you getting through with that. But I don't think there's any difference in time. Although that picture that I showed of the interview that I did last week, I was talking to the reporter about how her life has changed through this. And it's Maggie Flecknoe with CW. Usually she has to be at the studio at 3 a.m. every day. And now they're not filming as much live content, and a lot of it is pre-recorded look lives. So it looks like it's live, but they're doing it in the middle of the day. So her hours have changed, and I'm curious if other TV reporters are in the same boat. Janice asked, do press releases still work or direct communication with reporters? I will always say that direct communication with reporters is going to be significantly more impactful than just blasting out a press release. Press releases are good to share information with a wide group of reporters if you have some sort of big announcement, but even still, I would piggyback that with individualized outreach, exclusives beforehand, and only use press releases for announcements, not for just sharing general information. So it has to be something that's really unique and really special in order for it to break through the clutter of the amount of information that's shared today. Great. Well, thank you guys so much. We kept it to right under an hour. And we'll be in touch. Thanks.